I see a few people waiting on YouTube. Hello, everyone. If anyone's watching yet, I think we just started our stream. We should be live. It's always fun to hear where people are watching from. So if you're in the chat and you want to post that you're watching from anywhere, let us know. Hello, Alyssa.
Hello, so excited to be here.
Woo!
Hey,
We
Alyssa.
just got live. We're gonna wait, I think, a minute before we really get into introductions, but we can talk about anything for a minute.
Talk about anything for a minute. Well, my AirPods are working. That's the first miracle of our live session today.
Hooray! First try.
First try, and they're still working.
Wonderful.
Someone's watching from Washington, Montlake Terrace. Someone's watching from Seattle. We've got a lot of Washington people so far.
Seattle area is a really strange weather-wise today. It's cloudy, humid, and really warm.
It is kind of weird.
It's like tropical weather without any palm trees.
Yeah, we got buckets and buckets of rain last night in Tucson.
Whoa.
Which the plants were very happy about. It is monsoon season. We get some really cool thunderstorms over here.
I bet.
Ray, you're like the expert YBot photo shoot person, so you should definitely capture YBot in the monsoon season.
YBot inspires me to go on more adventures just for the pictures.
You should. Hey, Nick. You should make a little raincoat for YBot and take a picture in it. I think that would be really cute.
That would be just adorable.
All right. We can go ahead, I think, and get started with some introductions and a little bit about what today's event is going to be about. So we're going to go in and talk about the new monitoring system in YLabs. But before that, we're going to do just quick introductions for the speakers. So I'm Sage Elliott. I'm going to be kind of just the MC for today's event and hopefully making sure that everything runs smoothly. And then Ray, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ray. I'm a customer success data scientist at WhyLabs, and I have the privilege of getting a firsthand account of all the issues that customers face in machine learning systems, and get to see an awesome variety of all kinds of issues.
Cool. And Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Alessya Visnjic. I'm the CEO and co-founder at WhyLabs, and I will be talking a little bit of the backstory of what we're building at WhyLabs, and hopefully we'll make a few really bad jokes to keep it entertaining.
Hopefully there might be a good one too.
I doubt it.
And Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Gracie. I'm co-founder and CPO at WhyLabs, and super excited to be part of this broadcast. And I'll be talking about some of the factors that led to the design of this new monitoring system, why we created them, and some of the inputs to those decisions.
Cool. And I think it'll be fun to see, we're going to talk just a little bit about YLabs, and then we're going to go into the demo, and then we'll, again, like Sam said, talk about the design decisions about it, which will be pretty fun. And if you want to sign up, of course, you can try these features out that we're going to demo today. The sign-up link is in the description. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, you can just go into the description. Otherwise, you can go to WhyLabs.ai/free, and that'll take you to the free sign-up page there. So anything you see today, if you think it's interesting, you want to try it on your own data and models, definitely sign up and give it a try. With that, I think we could do kind of the part about like why we created YLabs. And Alyssa, if you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be fun.
Sure. I'm actually going to mix it up a little bit. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about what YLabs is, because I doubt that everybody listening already ran and started signing up without having a ton of context. I mean, maybe you just sign up for all the free things like I do, but if you don't. So quick intro into what YLabs is. YLabs is the solution for all of your data and ML monitoring needs. One good way to think about it is that YLabs is like a Fitbit, or maybe you're into Aura rings these days. But I like using Fitbit because it's much easier to say than Aura ring. So anyway, I digress. YLabs can be used or thought about just like taking a Fitbit and putting it into various places along your machine learning and data pipelines, around the model inference, along the feature generating pipeline, or at the feature store, or along your Airflow DAG. And each of these Fitbits will track the vitals about your data and model health, looking to track things like missing values, cardinality of your data, the distribution of your data, and so on. And then the YLabs Observatory, which is the platform, which is a SaaS platform that you can use for free, is organized around these vitals. So these vitals get all collected, merged, and then continuously monitored for anomalies. So think like changes in data volume, data distribution, model performance. These kind of spikes or significant changes in these metrics would indicate an anomaly. And when this anomaly is found, the observatory can send you alerts or trigger your pipeline to do something like pull an andon cord and just stop the show, or retrain your model. So that's like super high level of what YLabs does for you. Again, think about it as a Fitbit. And who now uses YLabs? Well, Fitbit, we know who uses. People who are really good about their health. And YLabs is used by people who are really good about the health of their models and data pipelines. Among our customers, there's a wide range of different machine learning and data teams. We monitor pipelines and ML applications at Fortune 500 organizations in verticals like fintech, healthcare, logistics, HR tech, retail, etc. Like all of the companies that you hope are really good about making sure that their machine learning models and applications are not impacting customers negatively. All of them use YLabs to monitor their machine learning applications. And then we also work with SMBs, small, medium businesses, and AI for startups. Again, YLabs is a SaaS, so literally anybody can get started, instrument their model with this little Fitbit and start monitoring. The kind of the best practice is to monitor once your model goes into production, because if you don't monitor, then you have, fun stories. Like a few weeks ago, Equifax told us that for a few weeks in March and April, they were issuing a lot of incorrect credit scores. About 12% of all the credit scores that was released was incorrect. And they said that those bad credit scores were issued because of coding issues. Likely there were either data quality issues or their models have drifted, who knows, but it took them a really long time to figure this out. And YLabs is one way to ensure that you figure out issues within your models right away, ideally in real time. Another example that is kind of making rounds in the media is Unity, where they reported $110 million losses because of bad data that was powering ads and causing the essentially conversion to drop significantly, which went unnoticed. And as a result, they had huge revenue losses. So monitor your models or you will end up with some dark PR. Now, we're talking about the new monitor release. So just quickly to tee up why we're doing this and what motivated us. And kind of the overarching motivation is improving the monitor configuration setting and monitor configuration process as much as possible, because every monitoring experience starts with configurations. And if your configuration process is very tedious, if you have to set up 7,000 thresholds and these thresholds become outdated in a matter of days, and then you have to set it up again, you probably would quit your job before you even finish setting up the thresholds for the first time. So making sure that this process is as easy as possible is very, very important for our product and for our customers. And then the second side of the spectrum is, our customers are data scientists and machine learning engineers. Nobody knows their data better than they do. So making sure that they have the full control over what is being monitored, what are the sensitivities, what are the algorithms, and so on, is very important, because they do want to start with something that is as easy as one click, but they do want to have that ultimate control where they can, browse the configuration JSON and tweak things if needed. So those were the two philosophies that we've gathered through having dozens and dozens of companies onboard their models onto YLabs and operate the models using YLabs monitoring for many, many months and years in some cases. And those are the kind of two guiding philosophies that motivated us to make this iteration on our monitor. So with that, I'll pause and hand it back to Ray.
Cool. Thank you, Alyssa. So before we jump into the new monitoring experience, I think it makes sense to jump into YLabs and show a little bit of the platform to give a little more context. And can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. So what we're looking at is the WhyLabs platform, and each of these tiles that we see here represent a project. And a project could be a machine learning model, it could be a data pipeline, it could be a data stream or a data set. Wherever data is flowing, you can monitor it. And the idea of what YLabs does is users upload telemetry describing their data. So things like distributions, missing values, cardinality, statistics, things like that are uploaded to one of these tiles over time on a regular basis, which allows YLabs to look for anomalies in this telemetry, do things like send out notifications when anomalies are detected, and provides visualizations for users to dive into these anomalies and perform some root cause analysis when issues do occur. Now, the way that telemetry is uploaded to one of these projects is in the form of a profile, what we call a data profile. And these profiles are generated by an open source library called YLogs, which the team at YLabs built in order to capture telemetry around a data set in a lightweight, efficient, and very flexible way. So what I will do first is before I talk about YLogs, let's just jump into YLabs and see what kind of data we typically see in here. So I'm in this example I'm showing, we're monitoring a machine learning model. And if you're monitoring a model, what you're going to be interested in is what's going into my model, what's coming out of it, and if ground truths are available, how is my model performing? And each of these are captured in this case. Looking at these inputs, I see each of my features that I log over here. I could see a variety of summaries at a high level, giving me a preview of what my total count looks like, the fraction of values that are null for a given feature in a given date range. We look at things like distribution distance, estimated unique values, data schema, and more. And the way that this information gets in here is through this YLogs library. And what I'm showing now is one of many example notebooks we have for getting the most out of this library. This example walks through uploading profiles to YLabs, but we have a bunch of other examples available for specifically if you're using ML Flow or Kafka streams, or maybe you have some Spark clusters that you're running data on. YLogs is very flexible and could really be adapted to any data architecture. But in this case, this is a straight example of what it looks like when uploading profiles to YLabs using Python, along with the Pandas library. Just a simple matter of inputting information like your token, where you want this data to go. Typically, we're uploading to a particular project. We're reading in our data, And profiling the data, generating these profiles that summarize the telemetry for a data set is super simple, just a few lines of code. Here we're just generating a profile with this single line, and we're just assigning a date time to it because we are looking for anomalies over time. So we assign a timestamp to that profile. We initialize a YLabs writer, and we just write that profile to YLabs. And that's really all it takes in order to get from just having a data set to here, so having a single place where you could see all of your telemetry summarized. And I do want to point out that I mentioned that YLogs is very lightweight. Just to give a little sense of that, we did some benchmarking and we've logged profiles of data sets that were over 30 million rows in under a minute. I think it was just over 30 seconds. And the great thing about this is doing this profiling in here, my data never leaves my environment. It's only the telemetry that gets uploaded to YLabs. So yeah, that takes care of a lot of concerns around security and data privacy. And these profiles are agnostic to the volume of data that you're actually logging. It's only telemetry that's uploaded here. So we see our inputs, we see our outputs, which we might want to monitor to catch things like concept drift, or maybe if you don't have ground truths available, yet you see some anomalies in your output, that could be an indication that performance is suffering, even if you don't have these ground truths. And if you do have ground truths available, we can also generate various charts showing different performance metrics, which give you a quick overview of how your model is performing. This is a classification model. We see ROC curves, precision recall curves, confusion matrix, all the things that are typically that we're typically interested in. And these charts would be different if I had a regression model, for instance. So it's tailored to the type of model that you're looking at. If I jump back to these inputs, you may have noticed that I do have some counts over here and some red highlighted trend lines. It looks like there was an anomaly detected for this price feature, which I'll jump into here. And now I have a much more granular view of what my telemetry looks like here. This drift chart summarizes a few descriptive statistics, so I could quickly see what my min, max, median, upper and lower quantiles are for my data. And in this particular case, we had a fairly wide distribution, which suddenly became very narrow on a particular day, and it stayed narrow for a few days. And this could happen due to a variety of reasons. Maybe I changed the way that I'm scaling my data, and suddenly I'm scaling it to a very small range, and it just shrinks. I get some anomalies detected, and it looks like somebody fixed the problem on August 10th, and things went back to normal. I can get a quick view of different descriptive statistics here. I can see my total values. Looks like I also had a big drop in the data volume. I can look at my missing value count. I could see what my cardinality looks like as the ratio or the count of unique values. And I could see the inferred data type if I happen to be getting mixed types of data into my project. So the big question here is, how are these anomalies generated? And what if this isn't what I wanted? What if, for some reason, this shrinking in my distribution is okay? What if, I expected that there should have been some anomalies detected here, which weren't raised? That gets into what we're talking about today. And with this new monitoring experience that we're launching, there's really so much flexibility in how you target different quantities being tracked and how you set these thresholds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the process of creating these, and we can see how easy it is to and how intuitive it is to set these up. So this model I'm looking at now, I jumped right into Monitor Manager, which allows us to set these things up. The first thing we see is there's a bunch of different presets available. Presets for drift, for data quality, model performance, and integration, where integration is kind of, you can think of it as a monitor on a monitor, a monitor that detects if too much time has passed since your last uploaded profile. So if something goes wrong in your pipeline that impacts your ability to upload profiles, you can get notified about those as well. And each of these presets are configured with preset thresholds, which work well in a big variety of cases. They're pretty general, and a lot of times this will work right out of the box. But we also want the ability to fine tune these. Every use case is different, and sometimes the monitors you set up need to be a little more sensitive or a little less sensitive. Maybe we want to target data in a different way, and that's where these custom monitors come into play. So I'm going to walk through an example of creating one of these custom monitors. Before I go any further, we can already see that if I look at model performance, for instance, I have even more options than I saw in the presets. I could target a variety of performance metrics. And if I just jump ahead and look at this type of analysis I could perform, I could look at a percentage change against some baseline. I could look at some absolute value change. I could define static thresholds if I know that my F1 score should always be higher than 0.7, but shouldn't be exactly 1. Or I could do something like setting thresholds against some number of standard deviations from, let's say, like a trailing window of 30 days. If my performance scores are outside of 3 standard deviations from whatever that 30-day rolling average is, maybe I want to be notified in those cases. For now, let's set up a drift monitor. And just to clarify, what I'm talking about here is I want to look at the actual distribution of a feature in my production data. I want to look at the distribution of that feature, and I want to compare it against some baseline. And we'll talk about baselines a bit more in a second, but this baseline might be your training data, it might be your validation set, just some data that represents what healthy data should look like for your model. And based on how those two distributions are different is what's going to determine if an anomaly is generated. So for this case, I'm choosing drift. I could target input features or output features. Within that group, I could target discrete features or non-discrete features. I can look at my entire data set, or I could look at specific segments of my data set. Maybe you're breaking up your data set by, you're creating subgroups for different regions, or maybe you have some status column where you could have a variety of status of in progress or complete. However you want to break up your data set, we could target individual segments of your data to monitor those to your needs. So in this case, let's choose non-discrete, and I could choose all features or specific ones. And the advantage of doing this is if you have some notion of feature importance for your data set, I could do something like setting up a monitor that is super sensitive for these important features, and then set up a second monitor which is less sensitive for those less important features. So I know that the features that I really care about, that are really having a lot of influence on my predictions, I could be more strict with those specific features. And for this case, I'm just going to start with a very, very sensitive Hellinger distance. And Hellinger distance is just the metric that we are using to quantify how different two distributions are. So even if these distributions are a little bit different, this is going to detect an anomaly. And when setting my baseline, as I said, I might want to, let's say I don't have my training or validation set available to compare against, or maybe I have a model that's doing online learning that's continually being trained as it's in production. I could choose a trailing window, and I could choose a variety of number of days. If I do have a training or validation set that I want to compare against, I could upload those via API, and then those will be available as reference profiles that I could choose. Or if I don't want to use either of those, but I do have a date range for which I know my data is healthy, I could choose a particular date range to compare against as my baseline instead. For now, I'll just choose 7 days. And once I configure this monitor, I then have the option to choose certain settings that happen after this is done. What we're seeing here is different notifications that can be sent out when anomalies are detected. I could send, for any monitor that I create, I could send to one or more notification channels that I have set up in the settings. And along with that, I could assign a severity to it. So this will make it very easy. If I have a lot of monitors that I have set up, I want to look at a bunch of different things, and I'm accepting some level of noisiness, I could attach this severity label onto it and make it very easy for me to know what I need to prioritize when investigating anomalies that are detected for my model. You could even include a little message to go along with it to give users a bit more context. I'm going to save this. I'm just going to jump into inputs and show what we could expect to see when this monitor runs. So analyses are performed on a daily basis for this particular case. They occur at midnight UTC. But I want to see right away what my model is going to detect when it runs. So I'm running this analysis now to get a preview of what my anomalies will look like based on the configuration I set up. It's running across all the features in my data set that it's relevant for. I found a lot of alerts. If I hover over one of these, I could see the drift distance calculated for each case based on the baseline and thresholds I set. I can see that I made my monitor a little too noisy. Based on these numbers I'm seeing here, I have instant feedback that could help me fine tune my monitor. This is too noisy, but I can see, maybe this point, this is a real anomaly for this case, whereas these others were just false positives. I could say, okay, let me just adjust my my sensitivity here, and I could easily just go right in, adjust this to 0.9, and my monitors are tuned. As simple as that. One other thing that I do want to mention here, we saw a couple others. We saw throughput, integration health, and custom. These are other features which are being made available in the UI very soon. Throughput looks at things like data volume, integration health, is your monitor on your monitor, letting you know that profiles are uploaded. But there'll be a bunch of custom monitors available as well, which allow you to do things like target specific stats. So if you have a distribution for a particular feature, it's usually the data points on the tail ends of these distributions where you're likely to see bad predictions. You can set up a custom monitor that targets the 95th percentile of your distribution. So in addition to monitoring the distribution as a whole, I could monitor individual statistics and raise alarms when those deviate by some value based on my settings. And if this isn't customizable enough, you can go further. One thing that you'll see in this new monitoring experience is this config investigator. Here I'm looking at the JSON for my monitors I have set up, and some people have very, very specific use cases, very specific ways they want to monitor, and having access to this JSON allows you to go beyond what's even supported in the UI. If you want to do something very, very custom, very specific, and if you're playing around with the Monitor Manager, definitely feel free to reach out to us, ask about API access to start taking advantage of this even further level of customizability that's available here. I think with that, I will stop and pass things over to Sam.
Real quick, we can just mention if you do have any questions about it and you want to reach out to us, one of the good places to do that is our community Slack channel, which I'll post a link in the comments, but it's also linked in the description. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can scroll down in the description and join there.
Yeah, and I just saw that Leo signed up for the self-serve, and thanks for watching us, Leo, and I hope that the monitoring setup is so easy that you can finish setting it up before the live stream ends. But if that doesn't happen, definitely ping us on Slack.
Awesome. So I'll jump in. Thanks, Ray, for running through the demo, and Sage for teeing up the sections and driving this watch party. I'll spend a few minutes talking about some of the factors that led to the design of this new monitoring system. So some of the motivations around why we created it, some of the pain points that it solves, many of which have been touched on already, but we'll just kind of recap those. How we listen to customer feedback and why that's so important to building product, and then some of the thinking behind the design of the new system. So motivations on why we created this new monitoring system. It's a lot of customer feedback. Although we did want to remove friction from the setup process and enable greater control over how monitoring is configured and how alerts are triggered. From the start of WhyLabs, we had zero configuration philosophy. So manually configuring monitoring is super painful. Data scientists would much sooner be building models and experimenting than configuring monitors, metric by metric, feature by feature. So it's really about ease of setup to get people going out of the gates. Another motivation is providing the most flexibility. So flexibility around how to set baselines, support for different algorithms. For example, seasonal monitoring is available. Just get in touch with us and we can talk about your needs for seasonal monitoring. And then greater control over what features and metrics are targeted by specific monitors. And Ray touched on it a little bit, but we have this configurable JSON experience where you can set monitor config via API and give a lot of flexibility for very fine-grained control over the config. So I'll chat a little bit about some of the pain points that it solves. One obvious one is that it allows you to monitor your data for drift and quality issues and model health for drops in performance. More concretely, we have simple to use presets that don't require configuration, lets you set up monitors fast. Zero configuration is still a philosophy that's at the core of the WhyLabs experience. We offer a variety of different flexible analysis options. So more than just static thresholds, you can configure standard deviation, percentage changes, absolute changes, and many more options. So alongside the analysis, you also need to have a variety of different baseline options. So things like setting a training data set as a static reference, or even a trailing window or reference date range lets you have the most flexibility with how you configure your monitoring. So one of the biggest pain points is not understanding those configurations. And Ray ran through this in his demo, which was super insightful, but you can tune the monitor configuration via the UI or via API, and then you can go run the preview and see the results in real time. So this shortens the feedback loop, and we thought that that was a really important pain point to solve with this new monitor system. And then lastly, it enables a high degree of options around alerting, notifications, and actions. So you can customize the severity of alerts. You can define the actions that should be taken on alerts. And you can get notified of specific anomalies, or perhaps even trigger a pipeline change or retrain a model. So we've taken a human-centered approach to building WhyLabs. Hearing from customers is critical to our ability to build a product that's valuable and useful. And so Ray heads up our customer success team and is continually bringing feedback back to the product team. And we use that feedback to really directly influence and prioritize what we're going to build in the product. And so with the new monitor system, we wanted to act on some of the things that we heard from customers and knew that there was an opportunity to innovate on the alert and notification experience, and an opportunity to combine zero config, ease of setup with fine-grained controls. And so some of the thinking behind the design of the new monitor system, we wanted to build a system for customers who had a need to monitor both data in motion as well as monitor model health. We knew that the new monitor system should decouple these use cases in a simple way. And so that gave us the motivation to innovate on monitor presets. Again, something that Ray was showing in his demo. So you have the option to set drift and data quality presets that supports a variety of data monitoring needs, and then model health presets for monitoring model performance. The config UI makes it simple to modify and update those configurations, so you can get really fine-tuned configurations via the UI in addition to working with the presets. And then the JSON file via the UI helps you understand the underlying monitor config and lets you develop a mental model. And then lastly, just to touch on it again, the ability to shorten the feedback loop between setting the config and then also understanding the results gives a lot of flexibility for tuning those monitors in real time. Ultimately, we wanted to focus on innovating, pushing forward the monitoring experience for our customers and users. So that's removing friction. The ease of setup to get going fast is really critical to any monitoring system, providing greater flexibility and customization, and then greater control when alerts are generated. So the ability to set severity, actions, and notifications. And so overall, that's been our approach to building out this new monitor system and enabling customers and users to really operate their data and model systems. That's all I have. Back to you, Sage.
Thank you, Sam. And if anyone is trying it out and you've signed up here or you've already been in WhyLabs before, again, give us feedback. So the Slack's a good place for it. Email, however you're connected with us.
You can comment on these live feeds too.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, I see. I just saw a comment coming in. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions right now for us, I think we're kind of open for some Q&A. If you had any questions about what you saw, or any questions about anything we mentioned, or any other questions about YLabs or YLogs in general, feel free to post it in the comment section. Real quick, while we're waiting for comments to come in, what's next for YLabs or YLogs? Do we have? I know we already talked about a really cool release feature. Do we have anything awesome? Anything else awesome we want to mention?
Sure. We have a couple of features that are in beta right now and can be made available. So we have a data investigation tool that enables you to kick off debugging and root cause analysis and allow you to slice and dice and compare different metrics and different features or columns or performance against other things arbitrarily to really help drive some insights around what might be going wrong or things that you may want to monitor. And then we also have explainability dashboards and feature importance dashboards in beta as well. So enabling you to visualize and compare feature importance weights and use those as inputs to setting up monitor configuration inside of the platform. There's a couple of things that are already in beta and coming soon, generally available.
I'm also excited for the next version of YLogs, some of the features that are going to be in there around making it easier to log computer vision and NLP features for performance too.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
Someone had a question about where can you run YLogs and what can it integrate with? We have actually a good I don't have the link right now, but if you go to the YLogs GitHub that we shared earlier, that should also be in the description. There's actually a lot of integration examples under the Python folder there.
Can I share my screen?
Oh yeah.
Let's see if this trick works. Always anxious. All right. There we go. So when it comes to YLogs, there are many integrations. First of all, into your favorite machine learning and data pipelines. Think Flight and Airflow and ZenML, Hamilton, etc. Then data sources. Think, Pandas, if you're a Python person, Spark, Array, Kafka, and so on. Then, of course, different model training frameworks. Everybody's favorites, TensorFlow and scikit-learn, and then deployment, of course. I think popular ones are like Flask and Fast API and SageMaker. And then as you're generating these YLogs, you would want to write them somewhere so they could be written into S3 as artifacts, or they can be stored as ML flow artifacts. And then, of course, you'd probably want to also run YLogs in a containerized environment or in a pandas environment. And there are a bunch of examples here in the GitHub page that you can kind of follow along and try out.
Very cool. Someone said, thanks for the demo. Could be very interesting for their large amount of data in, I think, pharmaceuticals. Should be very interesting.
Pharmacovigilance?
I'm just assuming it's a pharmaceutical company.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. And if those large amounts of data are Spark workloads, there's a really cool integration with YLogs you should try out.
Any other questions from anybody?
Yeah, I think I do want to add while we're talking about Spark clusters. I think it's a good point to call out one of the more interesting things about YLogs and what makes it pretty unique is that you could have data distributed across multiple nodes or in different places. And one of the great things about YLogs is these profiles are generated. They're designed such that fragments of data that are profiled in different places can be brought together into a single profile that represents a holistic summary of your data. So yeah, you don't have to worry about taking two incompatible summaries and trying to merge them together and getting nonsensical results. They're fully mergeable, so you can merge from different sources. You can do things like zoom in from a daily level view to a monthly level view or yearly level view, and yeah, they're built with that mergeability in mind.
Someone also asked if kind of what's the most an example of a complex data or model that you've seen being used in YLabs.
Ray, you want to talk about some of those multimodal examples?
Yeah. So yeah, with multimodal examples, we had a few. We had a team that had a multimodal model who was interested in monitoring that, and yeah, you have text data as one part of it, and image data as the other mode, and with these with YLogs, you can profile each of those independently, and YLogs supports image data and text data out of the box, and yeah, you could actually profile them independently and then come up with the end result is a single profile describing your multimodal data. So it's a pretty interesting case that's simpler than you might expect to profile.
And I think another interesting example of models are Ensemble models. So users who are running Ensemble models typically run into issues with monitoring and getting observability into different parts of the Ensemble. We support that at YLabs by allowing you to take advantage of the segments. So you can essentially assign each part of the Ensemble to a particular segment that will be monitored separately. And then you can see essentially performance across the overall Ensemble or separate performance across a particular part of the Ensemble. And you can configure different monitors for each part of the Ensemble too. So it's a pretty complex and interesting use case, but common nevertheless. Ensembles are pretty common.
Those are some cool examples. One other question, maybe the last question that I've seen right now is, what are some of the industries, or does there seem to be like a specific industry that is kind of adopting YLogs or YLabs?
I don't think we have a particular saturation in any industry. What motivates, so YLabs is deployed across fintech, banks, retail, both traditional retail and e-commerce, logistics solutions, AI first, especially logistics solutions are common customers. Also HR tech, marketing tech. So what unites all of the YLabs customers is they have either models running in production and they would like to monitor them to ensure that they're generating the best business decisions and the best customer experience, or they have data pipelines, data in motion, data streams that are running and powering various business decision making within the company, and they want to make sure that these data pipelines are healthy and that the data that gets delivered to either dashboards or reports or other decision making systems is healthy and trustworthy.
Cool. And I'll just mention, I think one cool thing, like Ray talked a little bit about YLog profiles before, about how they just kind of contain the telemetry data, not the customer or not the raw data. So there's some industries too where they're more okay using, you know, passing telemetry logs versus their raw data over to a monitoring system. Like
now,
finance.
I would further add that, you know, organizations that are you know, running machine learning models to power various business decisions typically are working with very, very proprietary data. And even moving this data into some other location where it has to be post-processed is a hurdle because, you know, some of this data is red data and only a certain subset of people has permissions to it. In some cases, production data, inference data, very, very few people in the company have access to because it contains very confidential information. So the approach that we're taking at YLabs, which involves putting that little Fitbit and only gathering the vitals, only gathering the telemetry, is really, really friendly to these use cases that, you know, would otherwise be very painful to get any information about this highly proprietary data over and to get it monitored.
Very cool. I don't see any other questions right now. Does anyone else have anything they want to add before we go ahead and end our stream?
I'll just add, please give us feedback. We can only get better with feedback that comes from practitioners who are trying the product or hearing the ideas, hearing the design philosophies that we use, hear the architectural approaches that we made, you know, choices around. I'm sure there are hundreds of really smart people in the room that are watching this and will be watching this. We strive from your feedback, so don't be shy, get in touch, let us know what you think.
Yeah, and go if it sounds cool or interesting, you know, go to our GitHub and give us some stars there as well. That always helps us. Helps any open source project on GitHub, really. But mainly feedback. But stars are nice too.
We love stars. Absolutely. That's like the small little thing that you can do that gives you a good amount of karma points, I promise.
We definitely notice. And with that, if there's nothing else anyone wants to add and no other questions coming in, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the stream for today. Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you so much, Alessya, Ray, and Sam for coming on and showing the demo and talking about YLabs and YLogs.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. I'm gonna end the